வணக்கம். செம்மொழி Multimedia Center, Central Institute of Classical Tamil, very happy to present Silappadhikaram, the story of anklets by Ilango Vadigal. This is Dr. Madhusudhanan Kalaichelvan trying to understand and appreciate it along with you. The third chapter of Silappadhikaram starts with a new entry, a character is introduced. As we discussed in the introductory sessions, Silappadhikaram is based out of the story of three very popular characters. Kannagi, who is of course the heroine, and Kovalan, the hero. When you have a hero and a heroine in a story that's about love, life and fortune, there should be somebody who comes in between, and that is the role of Madhavi, the dancers. But hold on, she was not intentional in splitting the husband and wife. The married, well-married Kovalan and Kannagi, who belong to highly appreciated, quality-based, dharmic family background, she did not intend to come in between them or cause a trouble in the family. But fate drives us all, and Kannagi, Kovalan and Madhavi were no exception. The third chapter, interestingly, starts with a scene from the past, from the celestial worlds, Indraloka. One fine morning, when sage Agastya was to be welcomed at Indraloka, Indra was very particular about keeping it all perfect. Known for his Shiva Bhakti, and hence the curses that he gives will actually bother you. Indra was very particular in treating him with very high esteem. So everything was perfect, and in order to welcome sage Agastya, Urvashi, the celestial nymph, she was asked to perform a dance and welcome him suitably. As Agastya walked into Indraloka, Urvashi started dancing, but it was intended towards Jayanta, the handsome young son of Indra, in whom Urvashi was in love with. So there was mutual love between them. So in the guise of or disguise of praising Agastya and welcoming him, Urvashi ended up celebrating the charm and youthfulness of Jayanta, and seeing her completely distracted, Agastya understood what was happening and cursed her to be born down in the earth as a human being, laden with love for a young charming man, and understand what it takes to attain a celestial life. And so Madhavi, this dancuess, who is the third significant character in Silappadhikaram, is understood as this form of Urvashi, who was cursed by Agastya and hence born in the community of dancers in Pumbuhar. And what happened to Jayanta? Well, he was cursed to be born as a bamboo tree, and much when he pleaded, Agastya allowed him to be chopped and used as the stick which the conductors of dance, the senior teachers, use to maintain rhythm. They beat it over a plank of wood and to maintain rhythm, and they chant out the rhythm also. The jati is chanted. So that little stick that they have in their hand is what is believed to have been Jayanta, who was cursed and later attained a vimochanam from his curse. So this is the background of Madhavi, and she was born in Pumbuhar in the community of dancers, and she was brought into dance, trained starting from 5 years of age. As a young little girl, she started dancing, and she trained for the next 7 years. She was also 12 at that time when all of this happens, and that was her debut day. Arangetram, or Rangapravesham as it is called, is certainly a milestone event in the life of any artist, performing artist especially, a musician or a dancer or an instrumentalist. When he or she is trained enough, and when his or her guru believes that it can be presented to the outside world as an individual artist, to be certified as an artist, Rangapravesham happens. That's the debut. So it's a very auspicious day, a very remarkable day in the life of an artist. That's technically the beginning of his or her journey as an artist, and that was the auspicious day. And hence the third chapter is featured around the debut of Madhavi, the dancuess, who has been trained in all forms of dance and associated arts 7 years at a stretch. Started dancing at a tender age of 5, and she was 12 then. And now her dance teacher, who was a master himself, Ilango Vadigal dwells deep into helping us understand the mastery of her dance teacher. He talks sings lines about his mastery. He talks about the various schools of dance in which he had excelled. The two different schools of Desi and Margam schools where he excelled. Desi is more like a secular form that you can define for yourself, but Margam is an orthodox school where certain dance styles are listed and you have to master it, and when you perform a Margam, it is completely bound by the grammar for dance. You have Natya Shastras, which talks elaborately about the do's and the don'ts. It talks about everything dance and associated with it. So, somebody who had excelled in it and performs based on such well laid orthodox norms, they are called as to perform a Margam. As opposed to it, you have a more lenient school, which is the Desi style. So, you have both these forms of dance, and Madhavi's dance master, teacher, had excelled in both these schools. He knew about all the aspects of dance. He had mastered rhythm. He knew graceful gestures. He knew how to mimic natural elements. He can dance like a deer. He can mimic the movements of animals and birds. His face was so expressionful. He was just very too expressive. He was too expressive, in fact, I'm sorry. And the expressions of his face could give us a clue about the rasam that he is trying to exhibit, the scene that he is trying to paint through his graceful movements, gestures. His eyes could speak, so were his body parts. He knew where to use both his hands. He knew where it was enough if he could just use one hand. His fingers could get such crisp and beautiful gestures. The abhinaya part of it, the aharyam, the way to dress for a performance, to make up himself or herself. These were all aspects of dance that a dancer, a full-fledged dancer, somebody who is believed to have mastered it, should be, these are the qualities that he or she should possess. So, this celebrated teacher of Madhavi knew it all. He had very good repertoire of different forms of dance. He knew rhythm so well. He knew laya. Any dancer will have to correlate with the orchestra, the musician who chanted the rhythm, who sang, and various instrumentalists, percussionists, string instrument, and wind instrument. So, all of it is described. In fact, the third chapter, which is the Arangetra Kadai as it is called, the chapter on the debut, is very, very challenging and tough to decode. Very few masters who had mastered both Tamil as a language and the traditional musical aspects of Tamil speaking communities, the musical treatise, which unfortunately we have lost major parts of, had to come in. So, you need to be a master of both the language and musical traditions to decode the third chapter. Very few attempts have been made on it, in fact. In fact, ancient commentators have spoken at length about it, but the depth is so much and we have lost so much of it that it is quite challenging to understand, even for great scholars of Tamil. If you don't understand how music works, you will not be able to appreciate the third chapter. So, I'm giving up on the scope to dwell deep into every line and every detail that he'd given, but just be informed that it has been discussed to such unimaginable depth. And he talks about various instruments that are played. He talks about the orchestra and each of the instruments that they used. You need a percussion instrument. You need various percussion instruments, in fact, one-sided, double-sided, drums, mridangams, whatnot. Small ones held by hand, held between your knees. You sit and play, you stand and play, so various instruments. You need to craft the instrument. You need to understand the quality. You should be very, very sharp with the sound that it produces. By one beat, you should understand whether it fits into your raga scale, whether it fits into your shruti. You need to be a master of playing it. You need to be a master of counts, the number of beats, because you need to be pretty much into mathematics, because counting by fractions is something that a laya expert should be well versed with. You become an expert only when you understand the math there. So, a lot of fractions goes into it. One beat and 1/8 of a beat, 1/16 of a beat, and several such fractions play a role. So, you will have to sum it up. You should be very, very fast in doing it. And especially when it is going to be an innovation, you have not practiced it and you are not just going to present what you have learnt. It is going to be an innovation. When you get into an orchestra where several other artists come together, each of their innovation, each of their creativity will play, and you will have to play along and also exhibit yourself as somebody who had excelled in your own school of art. So, that way the laya expert or the percussionist was a master of all these different aspects of percussions, talams, yeah, and then comes the wind instrument, flute, the flautist. He or she should have mastered it. Mastery back then was not about just wielding the instrument, it starts from crafting it. You should know what is the best quality of bamboo, or from which region you get it, what is the best part of the year when you can harvest a bamboo from which a good flute can be made. The thickness, the diameter, the circumference of it, how do you craft it, how long does it take, how do you season it, yeah, where to bore the hole, the distance between two successive holes, how do you place it in your hands, how do you hold it, how close it is to your lips, where you position it in your lip, and the strength with which you blow it, and the fingers as it plays a magic to open and close, and in combinations the different holes there to produce such soothing music that is in lines with what is being sung, that goes and fits into the rhythm framework of the percussionist. So, you will have to be a master of several aspects if you want to be a flautist. Then Ilango Vadigal goes on to describe the harp, the lute player, the string instrument, various string instruments. There are harps, you have the veena and what looked like veena back then. So, the 4th string, the 7th string, what not. So, he talks at unimaginable detailing, goes into how each instrument was crafted and the difference between each of it, how it was played, the geometry behind it, the crafting, the engineering, the sound engineering behind it, the stage etiquette. He talks about who steps into the stage first. In fact, one long section of the 3rd chapter talks about designing an auditorium for a dance performance. He talks about the possible shapes that the dance floor can take, the distance between the first row of audience to the performer, the height of the stage, so your vision is perfect. You don't have to strain yourself to gain a good vision. The pillars, the role that they play, entry and exit points, curtain, drapery that suits the color, how do you control lighting inside, the way where the height at which you place your lamps so that it does not cast a shadow over the performer. I mean, it is way too technical. In fact, the 3rd chapter talks so much about performance, the science behind it, the engineering behind it. So, after describing all of this to such beautiful details, he goes on to tell us about the artist and her guru also, and tells about the various training that he has taken. Ilango Vadigal follows a poet's nuance here. He does not praises Madhavi to be this excelling in all schools of dance and every aspect associated with it. He skips that part. On the other hand, he goes on to praise her guru, her dancer, the male dancer who has trained her. He gives us a long list of his qualities, his attributes, tells about the fields in which he excels. Now, that reflects indirectly over Madhavi. That's the nuance that the poet brings in. Instead of just praising Madhavi, because we can take an easy clue that she is going to be the second heroine, so obviously she will be praised. So, obviously she would have excelled in all forms of art. We might guess it. It's not an easy guess. That's where the poet in Ilango comes out. He does not describe Madhavi and attributes all these skills to her. He instead talks about her guru and reflects on his qualities, his mastery over the field, and praises him to such to so many lines, and he says he has excelled this, he has excelled that, he is a master of this, he is a master of that, and then goes on to talk about the orchestra and how they all sing together, because dance is quite a complicated art form. Though it is supported ably by music and instruments, the music and instrument part of it can be individual artists themselves too. But a dancer is highly dependent on them, and the dancer's mastery is to be a skillful instrumentalist and a vocalist, because you need the vocalist in place. If you need his or her support, you should know how to do it too. Otherwise, you cannot interact with them through your art. And when it comes to performance on stage, it's not a rehearsal, it's not a practice session, you're presenting it. And when you have the best of all from the city, the who's who of the city, being there in audience, you have to present it the best way. And he goes on to describe how the stage is invoked with the divine presence. He talks about the Bhutaganas who are to be established in different directions. He talks about the offerings that you make in order to make sure that they don't cause any trouble as you perform, to make sure that the stage is strong, to hold on to the performance, all through the performance. So you make offerings. He talks about the ceiling, the canopy, and what are all the possible design elements that can go into making the canopy. Interestingly, the Greeks and the Romans, who are well known for their performance, who have a long history in performance, stage and theatre performance especially, talk about the various directional gods that you paint as images on the stage above there, the ceiling, and how you control it. Ilangovadigal follows similar traits. He says, paint the planetary gods. You have the directional gods who are to be invoked in the various different directions. He talks about floral decorations. He talks about garlands. He talks about pearls being stringed together and how they are used as decorative motifs. So it's a rich stage where Madhavi is going to perform. And after describing each of the artists, the flautist, the string instrument, the veena player, and the percussionist, he talks about how they enter. And the preceding days, there are festivals and rituals that are to be performed. And it is interesting to note how the local governor, local ruler is brought into it, because every art form is so divine and it had got to be licensed, it has got to be informed to the city. None but the local governor is brought in. He is to be accompanied by 5 wise old men who come along with him to be a part of the ritual. And sacred kalashas are installed, and the sacred water, where after it has been chanted and worshipped, usually brought in a gold pitcher, is brought to wash the stick, the bamboo stick which is used by the chief orchestra to beat, to maintain the rhythm. So that stick is placed and it is bathed in the holy water. It is worshipped. Jayanta is in fact invoked there. He is invoked, and so his presence is made sure on the stage. And with that first beat, where the king himself presents it to the dancer, and so the master there, the orchestra, the person who is going to completely control the stage, so he or she takes it up in his hand and then they climb up the stage. So it means a debut has got to be licensed. When you claim to be a dancer from Puhar, you represent the artistry of the entire city, a culture which was so vibrant, a city which held itself up in pride, and so it talks about all of it. So there you have the king himself being a part of the debut performance. So he hands it over, the stick is taken, and then the dancer climbs up the stage, walks in through the left entry and places her right foot first and climbs. That's a traditionally auspicious aspect, where you have your right hand or right foot coming in front for an auspicious beginning. So she plants herself up there by climbing up with her right foot forward. Then she is followed by the entire team of orchestra. Each of them walk on stage and stay close to the left extreme pillar. They all hold their instruments. They have their own stage where the orchestra sits. So they take the stage, they sit there, and everybody starts at the same note. After an invocation, they start, each of them give one beat on their instrument, so to make sure that it all syncs well for the Shruti, and they all start together and a few beats are performed, and then the dance performance starts. And not to mention, Madhavi was like a creeper, oscillating in a gentle breeze of air. All over the stage she was performing so well, and at length Ilangovadigal describes her mastery over the dance. So she performed like nobody, and she was highly praised, and the governor, the chief there, the king who was the chief guest there, stood up and gifted her with a beautiful garland and 1,008 portions of weighed gold. It is in fact a unit called Kalanji. And Madhavi immediately handed over the garland to a hunchback woman, an old woman who was more like her guide. She gifted it to her, gave it to her and said, "Go out, stand on the platform and tell that anybody who can offer 1,008 calculated or weighed portions of gold in exchange to this garland can be my groom." And that was the life of a dancer back then. And this hunchback woman walked out, shouted out and told in praise of Madhavi. She said, "If somebody can offer 1,008 weighed portions of gold in exchange to this garland, Madhavi is yours." And fate brought Kovalan to that very street, that very moment, and heard this claim by the hunchback women. What did Kovalan do, and how they changed his life once and forever for the next chapter. Thank you.